America is deep in debt, and it's getting worse. We all know that. So what can be done about it? Well, look at this graph. It shows the increase in government debt as a percentage of the economy from 1975 to 95. By 1995, it was almost 70% of the economy. That scared investors. The government's bonds were put on a credit watch. The dollar fell in value. That's the Canadian dollar I'm talking about. That chart represents the debt in Canada. Today, America's debt is almost that bad, 62% of our economy, almost as bad as Canada's 68% in 1995. So what are we going to do? I'm told we can't cut spending without causing terrible pain. But look at what Canada did. Here's the rest of the graph of Canada's debt. From its peak in 1995, it's dropped steadily. So how'd they do it? Mostly by cutting spending. Did that cause terrible pain? No. Unemployment dropped. The economy boomed. The Canadian dollar, then worth 71 cents, is now worth 1 cent more than the American dollar. So hooray for Canada. And how can we learn from them? Here to tell us are Dr. Kim Holmes of the Heritage Foundation and economist David Henderson, author of the Concise Encyclopedia of Economics. So, David, you first. What'd they do?
What they did was they said, we've got to cut spending, not in the Washington style, where you cut the rate of growth in spending, but cut actual dollar amounts spent on various agencies, various programs. They did it over time. The cuts were phased in, but they had dollar cuts. And they cut about $6 or $7 for every dollar they increased taxes. They had small tax increases.
So there were tax increases.
Very small, but mainly government spending cuts.
6 to 1, and cuts across the board.
Pretty much across the board.
Like agriculture, 22% cut. Fisheries, 27%. Natural resources, 49%. Just one department increased, Indian Affairs.
Right.
Transportation down, human resources. And wasn't there starvation in the street?
No, they did it in two main ways. They cut transfers to the provincial governments instead of the provinces. You decide how you want to spend the money. They cut transfers to relatively high-income and middle-income people, so people didn't starve. Agricultural programs, there as in the United States, a lot of the agriculture subsidies go to wealthy farmers, so those people aren't going to starve. And so they were pretty careful about how they did it. And by the way, after they did it, finally they were able to actually cut tax rates in about the year 2000.
And all these cuts, we in the United States, most of us didn't even know about this.
Right, that's right.
And Kim, the result of these cuts is a change for Canada on Heritage's new Economic Freedom Index. You come out with this every year.
That's right. It's the 17th year in a row we've done this, and Canada is now the freest economy in the Western Hemisphere. It's the 6th freest economy in the world. The United States is number 9. We have fallen twice now, and 2 years in a row we've fallen, mainly because of increasing government spending and debt, but also in the last year because of some of the regulations imposed by Obamacare.
And your index ranks countries by business freedom, trade freedom, government spending.
By taxes, how much overall the government intervenes in the economy, and 10 different separate factors. That's right.
And the countries on the top of the list, Hong Kong, Singapore, and so forth,
right,
these are all very prosperous countries, good places to live. And the next 5, Canada, Ireland, Denmark, the United States, which fell one more place again.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, you want to live in a country that's free. If you look at the bottom of your chart, North Korea, Zimbabwe, these are not countries where you want to live.
We've had 17 years to accumulate data and material, and we've done an econometric analysis correlating economic growth with good scores on this index. It's almost like a 99% correlation. This means that the more free the economy is, the more economic growth there's going to be. The environment is protected better in countries that have economic freedom.
So you could afford it.
You can afford it. And also, we did a correlation with the Legatum Institute's sense of well-being, you know, how well you feel about yourself and all that. Guess what? You're happier, too.
When you're
how do you lose?
So it's insane to me, and that this index is really predictive. We know what works.
Absolutely, we know what works.
Why don't we do it?
Politics. Because unfortunately a lot of people depend on that government spending and they don't want to cut it.
And in Canada, they cut it, and
They had a
Do
way.
they even know why they're doing better? Are they even aware of it?
They had a very clever way of doing it. They said to the various cabinet ministers, okay, here are your cuts. Here are what we're cutting. Here's the exact amount. You want to protect that program? You come up with a dollar-for-dollar cut.
No fudging it. If you don't want to make the cut, make it somewhere else.
Could I just add one thing? People ask the question, where does all this debt and deficit come from? United States is not a high-tax country. It's not. We just simply spend too much. And so the answer is not trying to raise taxes to keep up with the debt, it's to cut government spending.